Hello, everyone. Happy Sabbath. I really enjoy this morning by celebrating His name and having worship together with you guys. And I'm very happy and honored to be here and speak to you this morning. And also, I'm welcoming our Ohio, our members, and also Charlotte, our youth group here. So may God's blessing be upon us, and may we adore His name and expand His kingdom by worshiping Him together. And I'd like to present you a special song before my sermon today, and the song called I Am Determined. So you're gonna see that song is very closely related to my sermon today. So I hope you will enjoy it. I hope this song, I am determined to live for the King, may ring all the day long in your ear today. And I hope God will help you and help me to do this. And today's sermon title is 10, 10, and question. So you will have to make the last number, and then you'll have to match these numbers and one of the character in the Bible. So let's begin. In the book of Daniel, chapter 1, verse 1, it begins like this. In the third year of the reign of Jehoiakim, king of Judah, Nebuchadnezzar, king of Babylon, came to Jerusalem and besieged it. So you see here, the situation is very gloomy, and they are in stuck, right? They have no room to run, nowhere to run. But you see here, the king of Babylon, the Nebuchadnezzar, now captured them and took some of them, actually most of them, and destroyed the city and the temple. And they took all the utensils and the tools for worship. And the situation is going actually getting worse, because in verse 4, 5, and 7, you see here, actually they have Hebrew boys' name into Babylonian names. They have changed because they wanted to erase their identity, okay? And they wanted to take away all the Hebrew thoughts and cultures and actually heritage, okay? And they have tried to change their characters, not by doing something, but changing their diet. Do you think having diet can change your characters? I don't have time to prove those things by giving you some, script and passages, but we all know about that, right? If we it's something and that makes us, and that gives us some kind of building up our character, okay? And actually, the king assigned to have them take all kinds of foods for idolatry, okay? And those food actually came from the unclean animals. That meant that if they refused to follow the king, then they had to run the risk of their lives, because king assigned. This is very hard situation where they have no choice but to follow, right? And they are now whispering to them, that saying that, guys, you lost everything already, okay? You are now captivated person, and you lost your nation, and your nation and temple and city all just crumbled, okay? Your freedom lost. So now you have nothing to lose. Then why not just changing the diet? It doesn't matter. Okay, you have already lost everything. And if you obey me, your success is guaranteed, right? This temptation is so strong that actually most people, if I were there, I may have to submit, okay? No choice, and my success is ahead of me if I follow them. But Daniel 1 verse 8 says, but Daniel made up his mind that he would not defile himself with the king's choice food or with the wine which he drank. So he sought permission from the commander of the officials that he might not defile himself. So you see here, made up his mind. It is not from him, because we all know that our decision, our making up our minds does not go just, for a few more days, okay? We just change and we just return to our old habits. So this is not just his own choice or own just decision, okay? Because we have to understand here the word actually sum, Hebrew word sum, it means that put, okay, to put or place. So when Daniel made up his mind, we can understand this passage that Daniel put himself where he is supposed to be, or he pushed himself where he is supposed to do something. So he now made up his mind to stand out to do God's will, not on his will, okay? Doing God's will. And he pushed himself on God's side while knowing that if he does so, then he would suffer even death. Because like I said, king assigned. King assigned. And Daniel had faith. Because we see in Daniel chapter 9, we see his prayer. And in Daniel chapter 6, because he prayed, he was thrown into the lion's den, right? It is all related and same situation, same event, knowing that the decree had been published. So the Medo-Persia is known as non-changeable law, okay? We cannot change once it is decreed, okay? Once it's released, then no one can change that, right? So Daniel knew that if he prayed, then he would be thrown into the lion's den, right? That is his faith, okay? So when Daniel made up his mind or just decide something, he pushed himself into God's side so that he has no place to move back or retrace, okay? He was stuck in God's side. He cannot negotiate anything because he was just pushed into corner, right? Not to be negotiated, not to be defiled. That's very important to us, okay? And he was asking officials that please test your servants for 10 days and let us be given some vegetables to eat and water to drink. Then let our appearance be observed in your presence and the appearance of the youths who are eating the king's choice food. It was very bold, right? And deal with your servants according to what you see. So he listened to them in this matter and tested them for 10 days. Now, Daniel was asking, okay, sir, we want to just see if we just would look better or if we do something better than them, okay? He was not to check if possible or to see if it would work or not, but with confidence that God will make it. So even before he asked, the game was already over by asking just only 10 days for the test. And we'll know why that is, okay? So why just for 10 days for the test? This is very crucial question for you today. Daniel asked him, just give us 10 days for the test and you'll see who's better, okay? If you think Daniel was so smart that he was brought into king's palace, right? We all know that, right? But why not just a couple more weeks at least or months to be looked good? Actually, if we eat something and if we just change our diet, it takes time, right? We need some time period to be tested. But Daniel only asked him 10 days. Why? Did you think about that? Let me give you kind of clue to understand this, okay? In Genesis chapter 18, verses 20 through 33, I'm not gonna look into that, all the details, but we all know that Abraham has been negotiating with God, okay? Because God said, I'm gonna destroy the Sodom and Gomorrah because they are very wicked and evil, just full, okay? So I cannot bear any more. They have to be destroyed. And now Abraham began to negotiate God, please save this city. Okay? Please save these people. If only I can find 50 righteous people. And God said, okay, if you find those, I'm not going to destroy that city. But Abraham now asked God, how about 45? That means Abraham couldn't find the righteous people, enough 50 people, right? And he was negotiating now 45. And God said, okay. But he couldn't find it. And now 40 and 30 and 20. And last, he was negotiating God. Please, God, if I can find only 10 people, are you going to destroy it? No, I'm not going to do that. But did Abraham can find the 10 righteous people? No, those cities were destroyed just because Abraham couldn't find 10 righteous people. So we see even the Abraham and Daniel, why not just they were asking God only one? Okay. In this case, Abraham could ask God, if I can only find just one righteous man, would you destroy this? Because their destiny was upon Abraham's negotiation, right? So why didn't he ask God just one person instead of 10? Was he timid, or did he get just small gut? Not just, having negotiation just one person? And even Daniel, was he smart enough? Then why not just he asked only just few more weeks or months, but only he asked 10 days, right? Let me give you the answer. Number 10 in Hebrew, and actually every Greek and Hebrew letter has a numerical equivalent. So each letter has kind of numbers, okay? And in Hebrew, the yod letter, yod, a very small letter, okay? Actually, smallest letter in Hebrew equals 10. So it is the smallest letter in Hebrew, meaning minimum, okay? Because very small, right? So you see in the New Testament, in the book of Matthew 5, verse 18, Jesus very clearly declared that, for truly I say to you, until heaven and earth pass away, not the smallest letter or stroke shall pass from the law until all is accomplished. That means that nothing will change the law until heaven and earth pass away. And do you think heaven and earth will pass away? No, not at all. It will not, okay? So that means the law will not change, okay? So even the smallest letter, when Jesus mentioned this, that is Old Testament, right? In Jesus' time, the Bible was only the Old Testament. So Jesus was mentioning the Hebrew letter, yod, okay? The smallest letter. Even that one cannot change, okay? So actually, Abraham asked God if he could find just like one, right? The smallest number he could ask about, okay? A righteous man to spare the city. And now Daniel asked the official that if he could get only a little bit amount of days to test him. Very short period of time, the least time, okay? Actually, the minimum was enough. And you'll see why, and you'll see how, okay? So that request came from his confidence in God, not food itself. Okay, if I eat vegetables, it'll make us smarter. No, it doesn't happen. Okay, only God can make it. All right. So he had confidence in his mind that God will make it. Okay, because he totally relied upon God. He trusted in God fully. So when he made up his mind, he pushed himself and put himself in God's side so that God will do something for him. So now in this game, God became finally the game changer because he will do something in this game. And we all know and we are sure that he will make it. He will win this game, right? So before 10 days of tests were given, Daniel knew that this game was already over because God is the game changer, okay? And what happened next? What did God do for them? In Daniel 1:20 says, as for every matter of wisdom and understanding about which the king consulted them, now king himself now is dealing with this, guys, right? He found them 10 times better than all the magicians and conjurers who were in all his realm. Wow, 10 times. That's remarkable, right? But now you may ask, Pastor, did you not say that number 10 in the Bible is the smallest number? The very least blessing? Yes, it is. But the very least blessing, the smallest blessing that God had given them was 10 times better. Did you get my point? So 10 times blessing here is the minimum blessing from God. Okay? That is the least blessing. So we can imagine that God, when God blesses us, we cannot fathom, okay, how much it would be great. So 10 times better means they got only the least blessing, but it was 10 times better, all right? So God gave them wisdom and understanding at least 10 times better than others. That is how God is working for his children, right? So with God, the least can be the most for us. That was the minimum of his blessing, right? So that was just the beginning of God's blessing, right? Beginning, not the end. So the Bible continues to say that, and Daniel continued until the first year of Cyrus the king. Do you remember that how the book of Daniel began with gloomy situation, right? Destructive, no hope, right? But at the end of this chapter, Daniel 1, it says Daniel continued until the first year of Cyrus the king. The Bible does not say Daniel just survived some period of time and then died. That's it. No, the Bible doesn't say that. Daniel continued until to see another new king, right? And who is Cyrus the king? He is the one who released God's people to return to their homeland, right? And build the city. And Cyrus the king helped them to build up their cities and walls and temple, okay? But here, I just want to emphasize one more thing. English versions, I think every version translated this verb continued as past tense. Yeah, it is past. It is in the past, right? But interestingly enough, the Korean version described as imperfect tense, which is I like the best, okay? And Hebrew grammar actually wanted us to see that it has kind of while consecutive in the Hebrew grammar, and we have to interpret them as perfect tense, okay? But the verb itself is imperfect, which means it is future tense, not perfect tense, which means not finished yet. Daniel was not done yet. He has to do something more. God preserved him to do his will through Daniel until he finished his purpose in him. Okay? So here, Daniel was not done yet. Okay? His mission, his influence, his life has to be remained, right? Until some time. Wow, it is great, okay? So the Young literal translation, actually only this English version, very direct translation, okay? It only says, and Daniel is unto the first year of Cyrus the king. I like this one. Daniel not was, Daniel still is unto the first year of Cyrus the king, until he would influence the king so that the king release God's people to have freedom back, okay, to go to their homeland. And there was Daniel, okay, to influence them, okay? And that does not end there. And Daniel 6:28, okay, when just after he was brought back from the lion's den, it says at the end of this chapter, says, so this Daniel, I mean, after showing his wonderful faith, okay, so this Daniel enjoyed success in the reign of Darius and in the reign of Cyrus the Persian, which means he prospered. He was not ruined. He was not destroyed. Okay? He didn't have Babylonian success in their way, but Daniel chose to follow God's way, and he had success in the year of Darius and Cyrus the king, okay? The Persian king, in God's way. So God made Daniel alive so that he could give Cyrus the king good influence to set the Jews free. Daniel's destiny as a captive was not projected actually, nor promised at the beginning, right? He was a captive. He was a little boy. But now he was still there. He just did not survive, but he thrived until he could accomplish God's will. So now we see at the end of this book, okay, Daniel wanted to describe his faith and reward at the end of his chapter. Those who have insight will shine brightly, like the brightness of the expanse of heaven. And those who lead the many to righteousness, like the stars forever and ever. Wow, this is what God's children are worth to have, okay? They deserve forever and ever, right? Everlasting life. Not just live some period of time and then died and nothing, okay? Forget about, right? But Daniel is still there to be remained and remembered forever and ever, like the stars. So I'm gonna conclude my sermon today. So you remember today's sermon titled 10-10 and question. So 10 days of test, right? And next 10 should be 10 times better, right? 10 times smarter. And what about the last one? The reward. What is the number after 10-10? What do you think? It should be forever and ever, right? Actually, we cannot imagine, we cannot fathom, we cannot just make it into our own language, right? That should be also the minimal number of God's blessing for us, friends, okay? So Daniel will stick to God no matter how hard his situation was. He wanted to put himself on God's side, knowing the risk of his life. And we see God keeps his children in his arms and make them prosper, right? So friends, what is your decision? Which side are you on? Hope that you live for God according to his will, and please be faithful to him. and become prosperous like Daniel. And God will be faithful to you also to make his will accomplished. Okay? Shall we bow our heads for prayer? Father, thank you for giving this opportunity to have our worship together, joined. And you gave us this wonderful message so that we may make our decision and make up our minds this morning to live for you, for the King. So Lord, help us to be faithful and help us to see how God has been faithful to me so that we may become like Daniel, who chose God's side and prospered. So Lord, give us wisdom and understanding when we choose you as our game changer. Be with us, all of us, and be with especially the Charlotte, our English ministry team. May their lives be prosperous and may they be representatives for you and for your kingdom, Lord. May we enjoy this wonderful Sabbath. I pray in Jesus' name. Amen. Thank you, guys. I have enjoyed and hope you enjoyed as well. So see you next time.